Hey, in this video I'm going to introduce you to MySQL Workbench. It's an Oracle free program that lets you manage databases and create tables and relationships between the tables with keys, and assign different relationships between the tables, process a lot of SQL information with indexes. So in this video I'm going to show you basically how to create and download the program, how to create users, the Superuser, how to create schemas, which are databases, and within those databases how to create tables, how to create columns, and I'm going to show you how to create new users which have different access rights to different databases. Certain users could only access certain databases within the program. And then I'm going to show you how to create connections on your workbench so you can log into the different SQL servers a little bit faster. So this link right here, you basically log in and you sign up for an Oracle web account, and that lets you that gives you access to this program. So you just go over here to this link and then you install MySQL Installer for Windows, and then you open it up down here, MySQL Installer, and after you download it, so basically let me just scroll up here and this is what it'll look like. So once you open up MySQL Installer, you select Developer Default, which installs MySQL Server in addition to MySQL Workbench, and then over here it brings up which port you want. So you could, if 3306 doesn't work because you have another server assigned to it, you could try 3307, and then I click Next. And then you create the Superuser, which is the administrator for the database and the servers and Workbench. So basically you just type in the password here, and the username's root basically. So username is root, password is whatever you assigned up here, and you just connect to whatever server. In my case, the most recent server was SQL Server 8.0. So then you open up MySQL Workbench right here, and here's what, let me open up MySQL Workbench. So you open it up, and right now normally it's just blank when you open it up, but I enabled connections to different servers, which I'm going to show you how to do right now. So you could basically access different servers with different databases. So notice how it says like root here. So this is like the Superuser's database, but I also created another database for student, which enables you to basically give certain people certain access. So if you have like a new worker or something, they could only have access to certain information because you don't want them accessing all of the information. So basically you go up here to databases and you go to manage connections, and you click new, which creates a new connection over here, and you can name it up here, and whatever you name it here is what appears over here. And you basically select the server here, the port here, and then you type in the username, and then you type in the schemas here, and so basically, and then you click test connection. And what happens when you click test connection is it says successfully made the MySQL connection if it works. So then that database will be located on your dashboard for Workbench, MySQL Workbench, which is this program. So we're going to just log into one of the databases here. So I'm going to click over here, and I'm going to type in whatever my password is. And this basically logs me into SQL Server, which has these schemas over here, which are databases. If you don't see that, you click here, click schemas. So this student database has tables, and then it has columns within these tables. You could have multiple tables. I'm going to show you how to create a schema. So basically you right click over here, you click create schema, and just call it new schema, click apply. And here it basically writes out the SQL script for it, and you click apply and you click finish, So here's the new schema that I just created. So I'm gonna over here I'm gonna click create table. So I'm just gonna make this like the new schema or whatever, new table. And basically over here you can write all the column names. So you could do like ID, and for this you could just do like you could do integer. You have all the different data types here. You have varchar, which you could change how many like characters you want total, but it doesn't have to be that many. You could do, there are a lot of different data types, which I'll go over in my next video when I actually make tables and I make relationships between the tables. But for this video I'm just going to show you how to basically download the program and create schemas, create tables, create users, and assign different SQL servers, download different SQL servers, and create different users with different privileges. And then like here's like a second column. We'll just call it like second column, and it'll just be like varchar. So over here it has all the different like column attributes and what you want to assign to them. So over here it says PK is primary key, NN is not null, UN is unique, B is binary, UN is unsigned, and then auto increment is over here, and you got zero fill and generated. So primary key is basically a unique field or a column for that table, which will connect to foreign keys in other tables, and they'll link. The relationships between them could be one-to-one or one-to-many. Like you could have, like for example, this column could just be like class ID, and then over here you could have like a teacher table, and the teachers could have like a second column called like class ID, and that'll connect to the other table, and the teachers could teach multiple classes, and basically you can pull data from like the teacher's class with like if it has different information than the other table, just because the IDs will be the same. And then not null just doesn't let you have any blanks. Unique forces it to be unique. Yeah, so that's basically how you create a new table. I'm just going to click apply. So here it shows you all the SQL, and click apply and finish. So now I have this new table over here, and let's see, the next step, I guess I'm going to, now that I showed you how to create schemas and create tables, I'm going to show you how to alter tables that you make. So you right click here, you click alter table, and then you could adjust anything you want in the table. Let's say I'm gonna just add like a third column, I guess. Third, press OK, click apply. See, it does alter table, and you just change the table, click finish. So that's basically how you can adjust, make changes to the table, add columns, or adjust different column attributes. So I'm going to go over here, and I'm just going to do, let me just click apply first. I'm going to click select rows, limit 1000. So what that'll do is it selects all of the columns from new schema. So database dot new table. So it selects that. So that's how you can select stuff. I'll go over specific SQL and how to use aliases with the tables to really shorten how you can type stuff, so the SQL is a little bit easier to remember. But I'll go over that in my next video. So next video I'm gonna go over SQL language and tables, and I'm gonna do relationships between the tables. And then so here's another thing. I'm going to show you how to create a user with the command line client. So basically you go to MySQL 8.0 command line client, and then you basically enter the password for the root user, and it says welcome to MySQL blah blah blah. So this is kind of cool because it's like a command line language. So I mean, I could basically pull this up with VBA and just start like filling out and creating stuff just on this screen because it's just typing. So I thought that was pretty cool. So you go to MySQL and just go to, let's say, use student DB, and then semicolon, press enter, and so it says database changed. So I'm going to do show tables. So here is the student DB. It just has one table, which is student. See, it has ID, Brian, and code. So I'm going to do select host user from MySQL.user. Press enter. So basically what this does is it selects like the host, it selects the user. So these are all the users within MySQL. So I created a user called Brian, I created a user called root, and I created a user called student. And then these other users are just I guess auto created. So right now I'm going to show you how to create a user. So I'm going to create user, and let's just do test user. There we go. So that created the user. I don't know why that didn't work the first time. I probably just forgot the semicolon at the end. So select whatever user from MySQL.user. So now I got Brian 2 in there. So I got Brian 1, Brian 2. And basically, so now I'm going to show you how to get to all the different users. So over on this screen you go to users and privileges. So here's the new user I just created on the command line, and basically you could go to schema privileges. So you could change the privileges to like particular schemas or databases. Then when you manage the connections, you can connect that user to that database so that they could just log into that database really easily. So over here, let's say schema privileges for student. I gave them access to student database, and then let me go full screen. And then I clicked select all, and I clicked apply. So that gave them privileges to work with like these SQL statements on this database, student database. So say I'll go over here, click add entry. And then so you select the schema here, and let's say I'll give them access to student database. Let me go off from root. So Brian, add entry, select the schema, and I'll give this person access to student database. Privileges right now they have none, so you could select certain ones, or you could select all and click apply. So now Brian 2 has access to student database, and that user can then work with that kind of stuff. So I'm going to go back to manage my connection. So I'm going to log out of the server and go to MySQL Workbench, and over here I'm going to create manage connections, and basically so over here I created like the student. So the username you could select over here. So say for example I just did like Brian 2, and then the default schema is student database, and let's just call this MySQL student 2. Actually, let's just create a new one. So MySQL student 2. Let me switch this back to student 1, and let me switch this back to student how it was before. So I create a new connection, click here, new connection, MySQL student 2. Username is Brian 2, and the default schema will be student DB, and click test connection, and then you just enter in whatever your password is for Brian 2, which you typed on the command line on that black screen, and then it says select made the MySQL connection, and you click close. So now when I log out and log back in to my workbench, here's MySQL 2, and right here it'll ask me to log in to and notice how this user that we created on the command line, they only have access to student database. So this is the only database that they have access to. So that's how you can create a user, how you can create a database, how you can create a connection to a server that only has access to a certain database. And I guess right now I'm going to show you how to install another server in case you need like a different server. So you go to MySQL Installer, and you could select MySQL Server like 5.7 instead of 8.0. I don't know why you would need to do this, but I mean, if you want different servers, you click that, and then you basically click add, and you go to MySQL Servers, you click over here. So you could have 8.0, 5.7, 5.6, and then you basically click there. I've already installed all my servers on my computer, but if you didn't install it, you could click here, and then you click here, and times 64 would be 64-bit. If you have like Windows 10, that's how that works. You could have 32-bit, which is 86, and I only go for 64. So you basically click there, you click here, and you click next, and it'll basically go back to like the initial setup that we did before, which was over here. It'll just do the same stuff again. It'll have like MySQL root password. So create another super user, and then you'll assign, instead of MySQL Server 8.0, it'll be like MySQL Server 5.7, 5.6. And you should assign it to a different port. Instead of 3306, you could do 3307, so you could have a different server running on a different port. And basically, so if you need like to separate the servers, in addition to separating the connections, So notice here I have this one connected to 3307's port, which was with the Superuser, so you could have two Superusers, and basically this was connected to the 5.6 SQL Server, so it was connected to 3307 port. So you basically would make the connection the same way, manage connections, and instead of 3306 you type 3307. So that's where the server is hosted, so you could log into a different server. So I guess over here, I guess I'll do a quick overview of how to create a new table within let's see, which one do I want to connect to? Where is the student deep? Oh, here it is. Just log out and log back in. Alright, so on this one I'm going to show you how to create tables, so I already showed you how to create tables and stuff, basically, and I guess I'll show you how to create a new model. So you go to File, New Model, and I mean if you want to save a model, right when you start, you click Save Model, which will bring up it's the .mwb. So you go to your C drive, your program files, MySQL, and you select whatever server you're working on. So go to 5.6. 5.6 has the data folder. So over here, I'll just save it as. See, it's a workbench file, MWB. So just new model 2. And if you don't have what's it called? If it doesn't let you save, because you don't have privileges, because your administrator only has access, you could right click, go to Properties, go to Security, and click Edit, and do users for this desktop, and then click full control and click allow, which will let you save and edit files on this particular location. And then I think if you basically go to properties, so save. So yeah, I just saved this model there. So now whenever I make changes, I click Save Model. So models are basically another way you could create tables, create views, and you have these 4 different working areas. Create users, add user, simpler way to create users. You could add SQL scripts, which is a much faster way to get everything done, which I'll go into more in my next video. But for now, I'm just going to show you the basic data model. So basically, you're going to, and this first thing I'm going to show you how to create a table. So double click Create Table, and then down here, you can name the table. And we normally keep, see if you click here, it changes the stuff. So just keep this stuff how it is. You can add comments for your table, describe, a descriptive column, whatever, a descriptive column. So over here, you could just create a user ID, column, and then it'll just be like primary key and unique, auto increment it because it's the primary key, and then basically you could do like username, column, and yeah, you could just keep like adding all these columns and stuff. And I mean, so right now we're working on like the columns within this table, but over here you could access the indexes, you could access the foreign keys, triggers, partitioning, inserts, and privileges. So I'm going to go over the rest of these columns in my next video. But for now, that I was basically just showing you how to create users, how to create servers, how to create tables, how to create databases, and how to set up connections to the different servers and assign different database access to different users. And that's all I'm going to cover in this part 1 of this MySQL Workbench tutorial. And click save.